Hello, boys and girls. We've come to that time of week again where we have our story, and Alfie's been really looking forward to hearing the story this week. Actually, Alfie, I've got a real treat for you today. Do you remember Paul Davies? I know he tells great stories, doesn't he? Well, he's got a story for us today. Now, do you remember a couple of weeks back I lost a book and you had it? Yeah. Well, sometimes when we lose things, it can be a bit frustrating. But the story today is about somebody who lost something, and it's a great story. So let's listen to Paul telling the story of Andy and his kite. Okay?
Hi, it's Paul back here with another story. And I wonder, do you like to make things? I know I certainly do. And the boy in my story today, he likes to make things too. His name is Andy. He loves watching Blue Peter. He loves having magazines of how things are made. And his room is littered with all sorts of things that you need to make any craft you wanted. He's got paper and card and scissors and glue and cardboard and everything you need to make whatever craft you want. And today he decided he was going to make himself a kite like no other. And I wonder, what sort of things do you think you need for a kite? Well, of course, there's wood, there's fabric, there's glue, there's pens for decoration, and string. And Andy spent hours making his kite. And when he'd finished, he was so pleased with how it looked. And he spent that night sleepless because he couldn't wait to show his friends his amazing kite that he had made. And you know, it tells me in the Bible that God made everything. He made the mountains and the rivers. He even made people like me and you. And when he made us, he looks at us and says, that is very good. So the next day, Andy raced down to the park. He couldn't wait to show his friends. And so the kite came out and it drifted into the sky. And then he let the string go a little bit more and it started to dance around in the sky. And then he started to do figures of 8. Loop the loops, and everyone started going ooh and ah and all the amazing tricks Andy could do with his kite. And he was having such a fun time when snap, the string came off in his hand. Andy couldn't quite believe it. He started to run after his kite. He started to jump in the air, desperately trying to grasp the other piece of string, but it was too late. The kite started doing loop the loops of its own. It started doing figures of 8 in the sky. It went over the hills and up into the sky until it was just a speck in the sky. And Andy was so upset. It was his kite. He made it. And now Andy, he's lost it. He was so upset. His mum tried to coach him and tell him everything's going to be okay, but it wasn't. And Andy's mum tried to tell him, listen, you can always make another one. But he said, I can't, mum. I made one and it was special. Poor Andy, he lost it. And you know what? It tells me in the Bible that we're a little bit like that kite. We like to do things our own way. In fact, it tells me in the Bible that Jesus came to find and save people who are lost. Well, Andy spent the next few days moping around town. And when he finally went back to school, he moped to school. He moped past the shops and up the hill back towards his house. Until one day, as he was moping his way home from school, he suddenly stopped. He looked in the toy shop window. He couldn't quite believe his eyes, but there it was. It was his kite in the window. It had an A on it and everything. And so he burst through the doors of the toy shop with a ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling, and he went up towards the shopkeeper and he banged on the counter. And he waited because the shopkeeper took a long time to come. And when he came, he said, hello. How can I help you? And Andy tried to keep calm and cool and collected and went, well, listen, you know that kite in the window? Yes, said the shopkeeper. Oh, well, listen, said Andy, it's mine. It's got an A on it and I made it. It's mine. Can I have it back, please? And the shopkeeper went, no. See, it's got a price tag on it, see? So Andy desperately looked into his pockets. Well, how much is it then? And the shopkeeper went, £50 it is, see? And he went, 50? I haven't got £50. I've got 5p and a quirly whirly. What am I going to do with that? And the shopkeeper said, well, if you want it, you'll have to buy it back. So Andy raced home. He raced up the hill. He burst into his house and went, Mum, 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 I found my kite. She went, oh, that's wonderful news, darling. He said, yeah, and all I've got to do is buy it back. And it's only £50. That didn't sit too well with Andy's mum. Andy's mum said, if you want it, you're going to have to buy it back yourself. And so that's exactly what Andy did. He did every job imaginable. He tidied his room. He did the dishes. He helped other people. He did the shopping for the old ladies. He helped people across the road. He did everything he can to get the money. And eventually he got his £50. And with it, he marched down to the toy shop. He burst through the doors with a ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling. He burst up to the counter and he showed his money to the shopkeeper. Well, here's your kite back then, said the shopkeeper. And Andy proudly held his kite back in his hands. Because Andy, he made it. He lost it. He found it. And he bought it back. And friends, it helps me to remember that God, he made it. He made the mountains and the oceans, and he made me too. He lost us because we like to do things our own way. But he found us and he bought us back by dying on a cross and coming back to life again. So no matter who we are, where we come from this morning, when we put our faith and our trust in him this morning, he buys us back so that we can be friends with him now and forever in his home in heaven. I hope you enjoyed my story of Andy, and I hope you remember that Jesus can really change your life this morning. God bless.
Okay. Did you enjoy that? You're glad that he found the kite in the end. I know, it's great, isn't it? But of course, as Paul reminded us, it's a picture of us and God, because God made us. We got lost and God brought us back and we belong to him again. I think that's a great story, don't you? Can Paul come again? We'll have to ask him. But for now, boys and girls, that's it for this week. Hope you have a great week and see you again soon. Bye for now.